just kind of shoved me right into it. You are a young wizard seeking treasure and glory. You are walking along a path in the forest one day's journey from Ring City, your beloved home. Night has just fallen and you're thinking about how it might be a good idea to find a campsite. After all, you're in goblin territory and it's dangerous to travel in the dark. Ooh. Suddenly you smell something awful. Reginald, are you responsible for that outrageous smell? You ask the warrior striding ahead of you. Pray no. I am always downwind from my companions when I squeeze the bellows. Reginald answers. You realize that you have never encountered this stench before, and it is close, and perhaps it's your imagination, but is that muffled breathing you just heard? What do you do? I'm gonna warn Reginald, I guess. It's an ambush, you shout. Hi, kitty. Startled, Reginald springs off the ground like a jackrabbit, his chain armor jingling. Just then, out of the brush rushed several snarling goblins, their eyes glowing green in the murky darkness. They charged with their short spears. With an arcane word and a flourish of one hand, you send a bolt of fire into the leader of the charge, who drops to the ground thrashing in flames. Reginald hacks down another with his sword. The remaining three run away, whooping and yipping. Their cries are joined by others from the dark forest all around you. Many calls are far too many goblins to fight toe-to-toe. It's a hunting party, probably tracking wild game. We humans are a delicacy, much better than mutton, Reginald says. You regard the two dead goblins on the ground. Dead goblins are worth 10 gold pieces per head in the city. Luckily, you don't need to carry their heads around. City authorities will accept their left ears. I'm gonna cut that shit off. Get the ears, you exclaim as you pull out your razor-sharp dagger from your belt. Let's move this shit up here. For a second, your sometimes slow-witted warrior sidekick doesn't understand, but as you start sawing away at the first ear, he gets the idea and fishes out his own dagger. Soon you have a bloody goblin ear stuffed into your pocket, and Reginald has one of his own. Nasty. Very. However, 10 gold pieces are nearly 6 months of wages to a common laborer, so you're willing to take the hit. What now? Reginald asks. Certainly there are excellent places to hide in the forest, if we can just make it into morning. True, the goblins may have dogs, and their own sense of smell is keen, you say. We might climb a tree then. That would at least be defensible, Reginald suggests. You wish to be treated like a fox with goblins barking underneath? If you wish a position that is both defensible and allows freedom of movement, we should hasten to Castle Inverness. It is near, and we could fortify ourselves behind those walls. You frown. It is a fortress, yes, but inhabited by what? God knows what manner of creatures may have taken up residence in that ruin over the years. The ruin walls. Castle Inverness is near. Let us take refuge behind those stone walls, you say. Goblin hunting calls echo from all around in the forest as the two of you dash up the path 100 meters or so, where you find a fork in the road. The path to the right appears to be seldom used and is nearly overgrown. The path to the left is clear, and you think you see a firelight down that way. Could this firelight belong to goblins? Or if you're lucky, is this campfire of a friendly adventurer? Let's, investigate the fire. Achievement unlocked. I'm an adventurer, damn it. Boldly you step forth, never a wuss. Cool. So it turns out the fire does belong to goblins. What did you expect? You're in goblin country, after all. You've come up to a clearing with two goblins staring hungrily at a rack of mutton sizzling over a fire. Apparently these guys are more keen on guarding their next meal than joining the rest of the hunting party. Before you can decide whether to turn back or kill them, one of them spots you and screams out. Reginald shoots this one with his bow while the other runs off. What a cowardly lot they are. You run back to the fork in the road and head towards the castle. On the way, well, you hear a whistle in your ear, then another, and you feel a sting just behind your hip. They do have bows. The wound isn't bad. It's a small arrow, shot by a weakling, no doubt. You pull it out without losing stride. After a minute of stumbling down what is best described as a game trail, you see the shadowy husk of the ruin in the moonlight ahead. Unfortunately, the battle cries of your pursuers are closer than ever, and when you look back over your shoulder, you see glowing eyes. The two of you turn on a burst of speed, and soon the outer wall of the castle looms before you. It is about 10 feet high and crumbling. You realize with horror that there are no holes on this side that are large enough to fit through. Meanwhile, Reginald, a faster runner than yourself, has disappeared around the north corner of the wall. A sharp spear whistles past your head. You look back to see at least 4 of the little beasts. What do you do? Jump the wall spell. Fuck it. You stay your course toward the wall. With an arcane word, you leap up into the air. Up you go, like a giant grasshopper over the top. You've made it, but now you're falling down into the castle courtyard. You hit the ground hard, but you roll with it. Fortunately, the neglected courtyard grass is nearly as tall as you are and acts as a cushion. There's a ladder nearby that you climb up to get to the battlements. There are 4 goblins at the base of the wall, chattering angrily. One of them begins climbing up the rotten rock. You decide this is a good place to take a stand. There is a lot of loose rock up at the top of the wall. You're not particularly strong, thanks to your inactive life as a wizard. However, you expect you could push a few large rocks down upon this climber. On the other hand, they are all out in the open, and your spells would certainly be effective now. Let's push rocks. Got medieval on 'em. The technology you used was primitive, and your actions weren't pretty or subtle, but you can't argue with the results. Absolutely. Why waste your magic energy when instead you can use the time-honored trick of hurling rocks down upon your enemy? Very medieval of you. Sure enough, there are some large loose stones nearby, which you push down upon the climbing attacker. The first one misses, but he looks up just in time to get a melon-sized rock right into the face, making a watery, crunching sound. He falls back down onto the earth, where he lies motionless. The other 3 look up, scream in rage, and back off. Suddenly, you feel the battlement boards below you shake to the unmistakable rhythm of footfalls. God, they got behind me, you think. Charging along the runway is a shadow of a tall and lanky man carrying something, a bow. Reginald, you sigh in relief. He must have found another way in. Reginald leans over the wall and, seemingly without even aiming, lets loose an arrow. One of the little devils below falls to the ground, squirming with an arrow in its chest. The others scatter back toward the forest. With their eyes turned away, they make difficult targets in the scant moonlight. Nevertheless, your friend takes one more down before the rest make the safety of the woods. We have struck terror into that advance party, but they will call for reinforcements. We have the wall. Can we hold it? Reginald asks. We could go in. You point to the castle keep beyond the courtyard. The castle is 3 stories tall, or at least it had been before the top layer partially collapsed. The second story is barely any better. The fortress is as lifeless and still as a painting. Still, you wonder if anyone is looking back at you from the dark windows and arrow slits of the ruin. What do you suggest? And I want to explore the castle. 2 are not enough to defend all 4 walls. Away to the keep, you shout. You run across the courtyard and open the large wooden double doors, which shriek on rusty hinges. Unlocked? This may be a trap, my friend. We best be on our guard, Reginald says. Once inside, Reginald slams the door. The entrance chamber is large, with a high vaulted ceiling. The stone walls are cracked and flaking. The ground is strewn with loose rubble. They are stale. Aside from the double doors behind you, there are closed wooden doors to the north, east, and west walls. Near the north door there is a stairway going up, but is blocked by rubble. It's not long before the front doors begin to rattle violently. Through a nearby arrow slit you can see glowing eyes and the glint of axes chopping away at the door. You're not sure how long the barred portal will hold them. Reginald wants to hide deeper in the castle. On the other hand, this place smells of death. It might be prudent to take a few seconds to investigate the rooms and the doors. Let's go. Oh. Reginald opens the northern door and gasps. The light of your lantern streams into the doorway to reveal a huge muscled monster stooping over. He holds a massive spike club in one hand and a melon-sized rock in the other. He bursts into the room, driving Reginald back. Neville's tongue, it's an ogre, Reginald shouts. The ogre slams his club against Reginald's shield, sending him careening into the wall. The ogre then throws the rock it was holding at you, clipping your shoulder, spinning you completely around. The ogre smiles a jagged-toothed grin and bends down to pick up another rock from a neat pile on the ground just inside the doorway. You need to act fast. A clever move, you're a tricky one. You yell at Reginald to follow you and lead him toward the eastern door. As you go, you cast a minor spell, knocking the bolt from the braces of the front double door. Like a tidal wave crashing on the beach, a heap of goblins falls into the room, creatures one on top of another. A chorus of glee erupts from their fanged mouths. Arrows and spears fly over and between the goblins in front, hitting a few of them. Unfortunately, you are struck by a spear too, although it's only a fresh flesh wound. 'Tis but a flesh wound. Meanwhile, the ogre roars in rage, throwing his rock at the first goblin and striking it in the chest in such a nasty crunching sound that you know the goblin will never get up. Reginald and you nearly collide into your haste through the eastern portal. You hope there is no ogre waiting behind this door too. Once through, you slam the door closed. From the entrance chamber you just left, you hear goblin yips of triumph turn into screams of terror, which are immediately drowned out by an earth-shaking snarl. Next you hear the sharp slapping of flesh against flesh and the wet sounds of bodies ripping apart. A fine way to handle a horde of goblins, you think. Despite your desperate situation, you smile to yourself as you run. You run from one room to the next, getting as far away as you can from that ogre or whatever it is. It's not much of a housekeeper, anyhow. The castle is full of giant cobwebs and broken furniture. Finally, you enter a larger room, a dining room, as evidenced by a long wooden table and two fireplaces. You motion to Reginald to stop, and you both listen. Faintly you can hear the far-off sounds of battle from behind you. Can't leave that way, you think. Of course, do you really want to leave anyway? There may be treasure about. Your steps slow to a crawl as you try to make up your mind what to do. Just then you hear something else, labored breathing. Is that crying? What do you do? Okay, we're gonna investigate. For the glory of the loot, you think to yourself as you take the lead. You quickly realize that the sound seems to be coming from this very room. You creep over to the other end of the dining hall and see a young woman sitting on the ground, chained to a fireplace, rocking back and forth and sobbing. Her cries break off, and she looks up at you with an expression of fear that quickly turns to surprise. "Who are you?" she asks. You tell her your names, and that you are here to smite evil while making your fortunes. This brings a smile to her face, a pretty smile, you suspect, although it's hard to tell under all the dirt smudged on her face. She gives her name as Kyra, and says there is a key to her chains on the table. Sure enough, beside cracked and dusty china is a small brass key. As you set about unlocking her, she tells you that she is a merchant's daughter who was traveling with her father's trade caravan when it was attacked by a mighty ogre with a small band of priests of an evil god wearing dark cloaks. Those of her party not killed in the initial attack were taken prisoner and chained up in this room. One by one they were taken away by the priests, never to return. They took my father, Kyra sniffs. No doubt he is slain, but I must try to find him. Will you help me? You ask her if she has any idea where his father or the others might be, but she knows little of the rest of the castle. Reginald takes you aside and says, "Ought we to take her to safety and then look for her father on our own? She will be in danger traveling with us." You agree that having some half-starved, unarmed merchant's daughter tripping along behind you will only get her killed, but where is safety? Last time you checked, the courtyard was crawling with goblins, and according to her, the castle residents are not very good hosts. Hide her and move on. There are a ton of hiding places in this ruin. You found a nice pile of rubble for her to hide behind, a few rooms away. You tell her to keep quiet and that you'll get back to her. Stay still and quiet here. We will return. Well, if we do not return by morning, escape as best you can, you instruct her. Clever, Reginald says, as you leave her. If the priests find Kaiba missing, they will not expect her to remain in the castle. With luck, they will leave the castle altogether to find her. And we can explore unhindered, you say with a smile. The castle is quiet and dark. You walk into a wide hallway that branches in two directions. One direction is covered in a thick layer of dust, while the other is covered in footprints. You decide that it would be wise to get a lay of the land before looking for any trouble. Despite the faint smell of rotting flesh from the dusty hall, you decide that it would be wise to go this way first. Less monsters, more treasure, or at least you hope. You have kept your lantern hooded, only allowing slivers of light out. After all, you want to remain stealthy. The way is dim, however, and you find yourself tripping over rubble and the odd piece of furniture. Ahead there is the stench of rot, making you wonder if there might be some terrible hidden in the shadows. Too bad you can't see in the dark like a goblin. Unhood the lantern. Since you appear to be entering a vacant part of the castle, you expect your light will not attract enemy attention, so you unhood your lantern to see your way clearly. As you move along, the cobwebs thicken and thicken. Spider, Reginald yelps. He points his sword up at the ceiling. There is an enormous hair spider suspended by a mass of yarn-thick webs. The webs are dotted with small, silky cocoons you suspect might encase rats or other small prey. With trembling fingers, Reginald sheaths his sword and unslings his bow. He takes in a big breath as he fits an arrow, draws back the string, and fires. The spider flails its long legs for a moment and then drops out of the web onto the floor with a thud. The two of you move on, taking care to watch the ceiling. Eventually, the two of you make your way to a spiral staircase going up. The upper regions of foul places like this are safer than the lower levels, says Reginald. Why in Neville's tongue would that be? Reginald shrugs. Do not ask me what is in the mind of fiends and evil-hearted beasts. Perhaps they prefer the darkness and stagnant air below ground. You look up the stairway and sigh. Well, perhaps we can get a view of the courtyard and the goblins from up here. Reginald leads the way up the stairs, which leads to a small tower. Moonlight filters in through two windows. This room is finely furnished and otherwise much more nicely kept than the rest of the castle you visited so far. There is a small bed, still made, on the end of an ornate table, and a bookshelf. On the table is an open fairy tale book and a gold-embossed hand mirror. Seeing loot, you forget about the window and the potential view of the courtyard. You pick up the mirror and inspect it. Strange, there's no dust up here. And do you feel a draft? We're in a ruin, of course there's a draft. The glass in the window is still intact. Gazing at your reflection in the mirror, you decide you look pretty good, all things considered. You brush cobwebs from your wavy brown hair. You smile. You're happy to see that your teeth are looking particularly good. Of course, you deserve nice teeth, since unlike most people you know, you take care of them. Every morning you wipe your teeth with a cloth dipped in a cleaning concoction consisting of vinegar, salt, a little sand, and a small measure of your own urine. Lovely. You are about to pull away from the mirror and put it back in your backpack when you glimpse a translucent skull with thin, wispy hair just behind you in the reflection. You spin around to see not a skull, but a young girl floating a few feet in the air, her pale face fixed on you. Reginald sees her too, as evidenced by him running down the stairway. How dare you touch what is mine, the ghostly girl shouts. You back up and reflexively put the mirror back on the table. You've heard tales of powerful ghosts that can suck the life right out of you, and wonder if this girl is one of those. Run. I'm gonna apologize. Manners matter. Your mother taught you well. I apologize, my lady. It was only that it is such a fine mirror that I wished to admire it. She glares at you for a moment, and then her hard expression on her translucent face softens. I am the Duchess Inverness. My father, the Duke, gave me that as a gift. You've heard stories of the Duke Inverness and the mysterious circumstances around the demise of his house. Despite your fear, you feel a pain of sadness for his daughter, who now shimmers before you, trapped in this world. And these books, why, they look excellent stories in here. You stammer. Read that one to me, the girl commands. Of course, my lady, you answer. Luckily for you, as a wizard, you know how to read. You pick up the book of fairy tales from the desk and begin on the first page. She stops you and demands that you read her the story about the unicorn. With trembling hands, you page through the book. Eventually, you find this story and begin reading. The ghost floats up behind you as though to peer down at the pictures. You feel a slight chill on your shoulder. Sometime later, you look up from her book and see Reginald peeking around the corner of the stairway at you. You shake your head slightly at him, and then return your attention to the book. In the story, the unicorn taps her hoof against a wall in a castle, and a secret passage opens up. As you read this, the little girl smiles and said, "There's a secret passage in this castle as well. It is a foul place, a place where people are taken and to never return." "Where is the secret passage you speak of?" "In my father's library. There is a statue. Push the arm of the statue down," she explains. You are intrigued by this and wish to ask her more, but she points at the book impatiently, and so you get back to it. Upon finishing the story, the girl demands you read her another. You wonder how long she might keep this up. Time means nothing to her, after all. You would like to get back to Reginald, and what about Kaiba's father? Rescuing a merchant might mean a fine reward. And there's Kaiba herself, of course. You would like to find her before something else does. Let's read another story. You do as the ghost says and read another story. You do not pay attention to the fairy tale, as you are increasingly distracted by the chill on your shoulder. When you finish, the ghost demands yet another story. Am I so craven that I continue to read to the dead girl while the living needed me? I will read no more unicorn stories tonight. Attempt to excuse yourself. Beautiful and gracious Duchess, might I ask your full name? Gabriella, Duchess Gabriella of Inverness. My lady, I beg your pardon, but there is a young woman in the castle below who requires my assistance. There are evil men. I suspect they may threaten her life. Am I in distress? Why do you dally here then? Begone. You need no further encouragement. You step lightly toward the door. Wait! Her voice chills you, but you turn back unwillingly turn back. Take this, she says, and the gold-trimmed mirror floats off the table over to you. I cannot see myself in it any more. She says softly, generosity befitting a duchess. I thank you most humbly. You bow and then leave. You find Reginald around the corner of the stairs, his sword at the ready. He begins asking you questions, but you put up your hand. Another time, you say. You've reached a checkpoint. Good job. Fuck off. Checkpoint! I didn't know there were checkpoints. I guess we'll stop at the checkpoint. I will see you guys in the next one then. Bye.